Inwood House has been helping unwed mothers-to-be since 1830. It was established by a group of Protestant ministers, but has always been non-sectarian and admitting girls who need help. Inwood House uses a number of approaches. Girls do not usually come to the home to live until the later months of their pregnancy. Lynn has not yet reached that stage, and Inwood is helping her in a way that it helps many girls in the early stages. Inwood arranged for Lynn to move into a private household, that of Mr. and Mrs. Richard Pease. Lynn is given babysitting and light housekeeping duties and nominal pay, family benefits and Lynn benefits by being kept busy in a warm environment provided by a family that accepts her situation. Inwood is careful in matching the girls with the families, and it is rare that such an arrangement fails. Lynn maintains contact with Inwood House through periodic counseling sessions. She's encouraged to bring any problems she may have to the caseworker rather than to members of the family she's living with. On this day, Lynn talked about some of her feelings and experiences with Counselor Ruth Combs.
We didn't talk very much yesterday about the baby's father, Lynn. Except that we understand that you knew him for some time, and that were you expecting to be married to him and working for him?
Yes, he was an already accepted member of my family. My parents had a great deal of faith in him. They worshipped him like a son. They really did. My father thought he had no qualms about my marrying him, and we planned to marry, and I decided to put it off and go to college, which I did, and then I came back, and we had planned to get married. And then all of a sudden, just before he was due to get out of the service, he was a serviceman, and he was getting out of the service during the summertime, and we were going to go to his home. We were going to get married and then come back to the States. And at the last minute, he panicked, and when he got out of the service, he disappeared, and we haven't seen him or heard from him since. So at the moment, I don't know where he is or what he's doing or anything.
Did you see him at the point where he was, as you say, in a state of panic, or do you assume that from what happened? Was he consistently...
The very last time that I saw him, we were going to get married, and he had told my parents I was going to have babies. He had talked to my parents, and he had told them that we were going to get married. We had worked out a solution, and then he just disappeared. I do enjoy home life, and the idea of going to live with him was very intriguing, and the family that she picked was a very delightful family. They made me immediately feel right, a member of the family, feel at home. They immediately made me a member of the family, and there's never been any problems or anything.
What is the family like? What is the family composed of?
Well, there are 3 small children of school age. The youngest is only 4 and a half, just starting to a private school. And every morning they get up, and they're my main concern because I work with them day in and day out. We do homework together, and the youngest boy is learning to play. I'm teaching him to play guitar, and we all work together, and they compose mainly my whole day.
What's their age?
10, 8, and 4.
When the baby's born, Lynn, what are your plans for the baby?
Well, at the moment, I don't think I'm prepared to provide a good enough home for the baby, because I would want it to have a very adequate home, which I don't think by myself I'd be able to give it. So I'm hoping it'll go up for adoption, I hope. And then I hope to get a temporary job. As I said, I may go back to live with the Peases for a while. I hope to get a temporary job somewhere here in New York until around June, at which time I hope to go and work for Mr. Pease. Reverend Pease has a camp for underprivileged children that I would like to work for during the summertime. And then next September I hope to go into nursing school and to complete my nursing education.
Inwood House has brought Lynn much more than mere practical aid for getting through an unfortunate situation. Lynn said she's already come to understand herself better, and now she thinks she will come out of this a self-respecting rather than a self-pitying human being. Jack Paxton, NBC News. Speaking rather generally, unwed mothers-to-be live in a state of shame because society attaches moral stigma to the state they are in. The shame can turn to a lingering self-doubt that can stay with a girl for a long time. Shame and self-doubt are not encouraged at Enwood House. The first paragraph in the pamphlet the girls at Enwood get says, "Life here is based on a total acceptance of you and your situation." It says the aim of Enwood is to help you understand yourself better. At any one time, there are about 40 unmarried girls at Enwood waiting to have babies. Yet that's inaccurate because at Enwood, the girls do much more than wait. They may be taught to sew. They make some things for themselves, some for charity projects. They can get cooking instruction, credits toward a high school diploma, instruction in Planned Parenthood, instruction in exercises mothers-to-be should perform. All this is in addition to regularly assigned household chores. One of the requirements for acceptance at Enwood is that a girl see her baby after it is born. In fact, Enwood tries to discourage a girl from deciding what to do with her child until she sees it. A girl may not fully realize what is at stake until that point. Enwood gives counseling on an individual and a group basis, but emphasizes that the final decision must be the girl's alone. The home demands that a girl accept responsibility for herself and her child. Once a week, girls at Enwood sit down to a group counseling session. They're encouraged to do a lot of the talking themselves. We asked them to discuss some of the broader aspects of their situation.
When I first thought about coming to a house, I was rather nervous about the idea, and I didn't know quite how I could adjust to living with all these girls. And I found that everybody's very understanding and everybody's very relaxed, especially the girls who have been here for a while. They've gotten to feel very comfortable. And at first it's a shock to walk in and see so many girls all in the same predicament that you are in. But after a while, it begins to get so that you think skinny people are odd, you know.
After the first couple of days, I felt at ease and relaxed, and I felt like there were a lot of people here I could talk to. And at the same time, this house is set up anyway, so you can be alone when you want to be, and that's important too at a time like this.
Jane? I don't know if it would have been too late to try to have an abortion, which really never entered my mind. I never wanted to do that, but it just seemed like I would have been one of the people some people who aren't aware of the home who would have maybe gotten on relief and gotten into that whole cycle that you can't get off and no one to turn to, no one to talk to, and my loneliness, as I said, I was so glad to get here, would have just increased, and I think loneliness is one of the worst emotions a person can have.
Well, let's talk about the big decision you're going to have to make. That is, what are you going to decide to do about your baby? And what are you going to do with your own life when you leave?
Actually, I've made my final decision in that I'm not giving my baby up for adoption, but that I'm putting my baby into foster care. That I have decided. What I'm still undecided about is the length of time that the baby will have to stay in foster care, because I'm going to have to get myself financially established and be able to prove that I can take care of the baby, not only to the Bureau of Child Welfare, but to myself.
Many people have fears about giving their baby up for adoption because it seems like a cruel and heartless thing to some unknown couple is going to take your baby. But adoption agencies, I've found, in the meantime, are very, very careful about picking out the proper parents. And if the mother has any special preferences, like she wants parents who are musically inclined or something, they try to cover as many of these whims as they can. And they try to match up as well as they can backgrounds and things like this, so that they really work very hard to find the right adoptive couple for the right baby. I've discovered since coming here that it's not really an impossible situation, that you can cope with it and you can get through with it and become a better person even as a result in some ways by getting to know yourself better.
and to assume responsibility for your own decisions.
Yeah, because in the sense that before you come, even though you know there are unwed mothers and you know there are, they've always been, but you just feel that you're the only one it's ever happened to, in a sense, or you thought it could never happen to you. But you face that when you get here, and you can overcome it. There are worse things in life that can happen to a person, I feel. Much worse.
A girl is never kept out of Inwood House because of money. What may keep her out is an inability to live in a group, to share responsibility. But the main thing most unwed pregnant girls want is company. And the best company they can have is girls in the same situation as themselves. For many of them, that, coupled with the help they get in deciding what to do with their baby, can make a difference for the rest of their lives. Jack Paxton, NBC News.